All the way from Phoenix, Arizona, Portland, Oregon, and Dallas, Texas, it's the Bros Before Elbows Pro Wrestling Podcast.
All right, here we go. Welcome to the Bros Before Elbows Pro Wrestling Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Anthony, along with my other hosts, Tommy and Team Monies, all the way in Dallas, representing PDX and PHX. Another somber episode. This is like breaking mega news. We're going to talk about the release of a lot of WWE talent and just make sure, I don't know, just kind of the fallout of the fallout, I guess. How's everybody doing? You guys staying safe?
Staying as safe as you can, man. It feels like I think it's like been like a month, maybe. A month since this whole thing started. Like it's like March 15th, and now today is we're recording on April 15th. So it's only been a month, but it really feels like 6 months. Like the last 4 weeks feels like 6 months, and like we're going in dog years now.
Right? Oh my gosh. Team Monies, how you holding up?
I am doing fine, holding up as best as I can. Yep, shout out to the ghost town. I agree with Tommy. It seems like it's been way longer than it has been. It's only been about 4 weeks since everything just just came to a really aggressive halt. And here we are. 4 weeks later, I don't know. I've stopped looking at the news as far as like hoping that they would say a day where things would get back to normal. Because I don't think we'll ever have a normal day anymore. So I just let ESPN guide my hope from now on. I just whatever's getting canceled or postponed there, that kind of gives me an idea. So yeah, here we are.
This is crazy. It's nerve-wracking. Is that like we've been talking about this for like the last 4 weeks. The crazy thing is they don't have a plan, and it seems like they're going day by day, which I think is adding to everyone's anxiety. Like we don't know, like, hey, when's, and then it's also going day by day, but it's also going like state by state. Like I hear New York and California are doing something, and then like, but what's happening to Texas and Arizona and Oregon or North Carolina or Florida? Like everyone's kind of like going by their own rules, and that kind of makes me uneasy as well. And just a lot of great uneasiness the last 4 weeks, which is adding to everyone's state of mind, I think.
That's why I need to hurry up and get back to Arizona, man, so we can at least be in one state. Things get crazy.
Consolidate the podcast to 2 states, exactly.
Yeah, we probably have better Wi-Fi there. For real, though, But yeah, man, it's a crazy time we're living in. But I feel as though eventually we will come out of this. I don't know when. I've heard like a month. I've heard we should practice social distancing until 2022. I'm like, what? There's no way we can sit on our hands for 2 years like this. Oh man,
bro, I heard 2052. Where are you getting your news?
Oh my gosh, man! That's Oregon.
Totally just made that up.
2052. Oh, that's insane.
I read it on www.thisnewsisreal.com. It's a very credible source.
Other breaking news: your computer's now infected for going to that site.
Yes, it is. Whoops. Oh,
you mean you guys didn't give money to the Nigerian prince?
It doesn't sound so bad right about now, man. I'm like, that's how socially distanced we are. Like, actually opening up those emails and actually reading them. Oh, good to have human contact. Even if it's a fake.
Right. Contact me, Prince. I need to hear your voice.
Oh man, crazy.
Yeah, serious though. But then you hit a good point though. It's eventual, right? Like eventually this all subsides and the world has changed, right? That's it. It's not going to be the same as it once was. But I've always been a big proponent of creativity comes from constraints. Human beings are resilient. Human beings are creative. Human beings are helpful and entrepreneurial. So whatever comes out of this, whatever reform or whatever, social revolution or whatever comes, I think it'll be for the better. And I think people will come out of this. My hope and this is purely my opinion, but I hope people come out of this with a better, appreciation for other human beings.
But counterpoint, what if everyone just goes back to being the same and being on the red team or the blue team, and like they'd learn nothing from this? Like
then that's really sad, and that just sucks. It's a possibility. It's a total possibility.
There's the hope in humanity, and then there's just like the fear of humanity just being like, I don't know, like people are not going to learn their lessons, and the more people stay inside, the more people get stressed out, the more people, react and take this in a negative way and start being like bitter towards all this. I don't know. It's just weird times. It's like there's like no game plan for this. I know we've said this like over and over, but there's like no like playbook and like open instruction book. Okay, step 1, this is how you handle a global pandemic when you have to be locked down for months on end. Like there's like never been through anything like this before, so it's just like, this is weird, man. It's just weird times, wild times,
dude. Total wild times.
The wildest,
total freaking wild times.
The wackiest and the wildest.
Speaking of wacky and wild, breaking news, as we've all been reading in the last like few hours, WWE has released 10, 15 superstars and other talent, or workers. I mean, obviously they furloughed a ton of people, but
before
that's
we
a part
go
of the breaking
this,
news too. Yeah.
Is this their usual? This is their usual cut time, right? Usually,
but it's not this much. It's like
I know it's not. I was just making sure we're like on time with cuts, but they cut a fat chunk. They just took out, and then the thing of it is, okay, I get it. If we actually review the names, like some of the names they weren't really using them, but like some of the people were just in, I guess what you would say, maybe featured storylines, or they're getting TV time, or like Sarah Logan just did a match with Shayna Baszler on Monday, which for all intents and purposes was recorded live, in which she did, they sold that she kind of messed, Shayna Baszler like stomped her arm out or whatever. And then it's like 2 days later, they're like, hey, I'm sorry, but we're not going to be able to employ you anymore. And I'm just like, okay, so you come and you say, we're going to sell this spot, which would maybe put you out for time. And then, by the way, you're fired, it just kind of is like, wow. Or even,
I think it points to the larger issue of why WWE is even still holding shows right now, and why they did not go out on the high note of, hey man, we did a good WrestleMania, we exceeded everyone's expectations by far, we pulled it off with 2 nights, there was no crowd, there was no nothing, we went out on top, man. We had a standing ovation for everything. And instead of doing that, they come back a week later and they're saying, hey, we're going to do all 3 of our brands live again, recorded from our performance center, when everything else is stopped right now. I think it's just completely tone deaf. And then to top it off of that, then they have a mass release of talent, writers, trainers, backstage people. I think that's a point to the larger problem, is why WWE did not just send everyone home after WrestleMania. And I think that plays a big part into why they had to release all these people, because they're continuing on trucking along whenever the whole rest of the world is just like chilling. Every sport, every entertainment, every form of everything is just, there's no concerts, there's no plays, there's no sporting events, there's no Saturday Night Live. Like, why is there live wrestling every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday? I think that has to be discussed before we discuss the cuts.
Okay, solid question. It's gosh, man, it's such a crappy answer, but it's just because it's money. Uh-huh. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. There's no easy way to say it, but okay, there's 2 perspectives. The dirty, crappy, simple answer is money, but the fluffy the fluffy reason behind it is to entertain the people. Mm-hmm. And of course, like, the better perception and the better, more, again, fluffy answer is, they want to continue to put smiles on people's faces. They want to continue to entertain people during this quote unquote current situation. And they're the only quote unquote sporting event that's currently happening. And then, of course, obviously, they're still able to generate something versus nothing. So do I agree with it? Not entirely. You know what I mean? Like from a humanistic standpoint, like, yeah, I think it's, really tough that the superstars and the wrestlers and the employees, like their careers are absolutely affected and really on the hook for a weekly show. And it's just really not cool. But again, I mean, to give the answer, at least I could see that from a business standpoint. It's like, well, we could either shut everything down and get $0 or like, maybe show reruns and stuff. But why do that when we could push it and still entertain the people and still provide a product? I know, dude, it's the crappiest answer, but it is an answer, right? And I'm not saying like that's what I believe, but that's just what makes sense.
Theron, what do you
T-Monies, what do you think?
Oh, okay, thank you.
I mean, I feel like just based on what we've seen across the world in the last 4 weeks, it was just a matter of time because, a lot of companies have been forced to have mass layoffs. I think the unemployment rate is the highest it's ever been in the U.S. There was like 6 million unemployment claims or something like that, some crazy number.
I think it's 16 million, or something like that.
Okay, 16 million. I'm part of that group. But, it's like for them to run the business that they've been running for so long, I feel like they would just say, well, we're the only game in town. Because if you look at ESPN on a day-to-day basis for sports, if you're a sports person, whatever, all they're showing is like reruns of like NBA finals from like 2009, 2010, 2013, 2016, Classic Masters, this day in history, Tiger won his first green jacket. So they're like, well, we'll capitalize, but we're going to have to cut some expenses in order to do this, even though the WWE has like $5 million in like emergency funds. I think that's what I read somewhere.
500 million.
Did I say 5 million?
Yeah, I heard 500 million.
I meant 500 million. Yes.
Oh, okay.
First you were off by 10,000. Now you're off by a couple hundred million.
I meant they have $500 million, and they could afford to keep all the talent. And it's like, but I guess in their eyes, it's probably just money, and I guess I don't want to say greed, but it might be a little bit of greed. Like Vince, Vince was worth like $2-3 billion last year. Now he's down to like $1 to $2 billion. He's got to keep his company afloat, which is a ridiculous amount of money when you think about it. So it's like, once we get into this list, we'll see that a lot of these guys weren't getting used. Kind of flow. I forgot about some of them. So I guess he just figured cut your losses now. But it's still pretty tragic, to be future endeavored at any capacity is never good unless you're really lobbying for it. Whereas like these guys are lobbying to get future endeavored so they could go work somewhere else. But I can't even sit here and say all these people or some of these people will show up in AEW because they're brand new. So like, how much money do they have? They can't afford to pay all these people. You know what I mean? So
yeah, I think on the money thing, like I think a part of it is the XFL biting into whatever WWE was doing and them going under. That obviously had some kind of like collateral damage. But like if they're not holding events and they're not traveling, like how much are they saving on like their trucks, their production, with like or paying for people's hotels or paying for people's meals on the road or flights or paying for to rent arenas every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and house shows as well. I mean, yeah, they're losing some stuff, but aren't they saving some money, like by not traveling, by holding everything together in one place? Like, I feel like there's some cost savings there that they could have, like, I don't know, baked into whatever their formula is for the next several months. But yeah, and then like with the, I guess the other counterpoint with them continuing being the only game in town. Like, people aren't, like, if you watch the ratings for Raw, which I don't try not to pay attention to, like, the TV ratings, like, in 2020, like, how real is it? Everyone's, like, on DVR, everyone's watching on YouTube or on their devices or whatever, so how good can they really measure it? But their ratings have been down, like, ever since it started. Like, people are, like, I feel like this is, like, a negative, like, PR move. Like, this is not good for their brand by being the only ones in town. They just look really, like, tone deaf. Like everything else is shut down. Like, why are you guys still going? I'm not going to tune in because it's kind of like I just don't have a desire to. Like I think a lot of fans feel that way. Like I don't want to watch that. I'd rather watch something on Netflix or watch reruns or something or see what's going on YouTube or something. I don't want to go out of my way to tune into Raw or SmackDown or whatever because they're still going. So I think they're the only game in town, but they have like egg on their face with being the only game in town. It's just a bad look from a public relations standpoint.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword, and I agree with that point, Tommy. And that's why I had to kind of play devil's advocate and give the answer that nobody wanted to hear, but but at the same time, like, yeah, it's bad. It's bad. It's just a bad look because just like you said, they could be showing reruns. They could be doing a lot of stuff to protect themselves and protect their protect their talent. But once we get into this list here, just like I've been saying in the past before, all this crazy pandemic stuff was happening, a little bit of distance from some of these superstars, whatever superstar it might be, could be a good thing. Mm-hmm. I did make a joke, just kind of jumping into the list here. I'll start with this one, and I'm going to call it here first. So you're hearing it first time on the Bros Before Elbows Pro Wrestling Podcast. Check us out on Podbean, iTunes, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. But you're hearing it first that Heath Slater has been released. That means Heath Slater is going to get ripped and he's going to kill it in whatever next promotion he's in. And then he's going to fight either Drew McIntyre at a WrestleMania, or he's going to fight Jinder Mahal and Drew McIntyre for the WWE Championship at a WrestleMania sometime in the future. So it'll be.
You're saying we never got a Shield triple threat WrestleMania, but we're going to get a 3MB.
Bro, times are weird, man. No one ever thought this is it. The simulation is broken, so we might as well just run with 3MB triple threat, dude.
What's weird is that Jinder Mahal is not on that list. Like, he's still in the WWE. I mean, I think he's hurt or something. I don't know. Did not get future endeavored. I would like to second this triple threat 3MB bonanza. I would get behind it. He's been around since like FCW, I think. Mm-hmm. He's one of that's where he started out. He's not. I don't think he's ever been fired. I think he's the only member of 3MB that has not been future endeavored in return. So
that's true, actually. Yeah.
Keep an eye out for that. By the way, he got kids. Like, he's got kids. So, like, I don't know. It's crazy times.
Man, he's a great character, but I just don't think he's a good wrestler, man. Like, he's not like, he doesn't have he's like, but I mean, that hasn't stopped people before. Like you said, like, if Jinder Mahal could be champion, like we were saying on the podcast, that just opens the floodgates for anyone to be champion at that point, man. Like, if Jinder Mahal can make a miraculous comeback and hold the title for like almost 8 months, I think 7 or 8 months, then like, hell, man, WWE can just do anything at that point. They ripped up the playbook at that point. So yeah, why not Heath Slater and Heath Slater in 2024 or whatever, coming back, making a triumphant return.
Damn. Yeah, why not, right? I mean, anything can happen, but I am sad. Do we just want to like go down the list and then kind of give our current reviews? So let's do that.
I'll go one by one. Yeah, just I'm on CageSideTeats.com. I think they have the complete update list. Just the talent. There's just backstage people like Fit Finlay, Lance Storm, Billy Kidman, Shane Helms, a bunch of the NXT trainers too as well who got released. But this is just only talent. So Kurt Angle, gone. He hasn't been seen for a while, but it's a Hall of Famer, man. He just retired last year, so it's kind of surprising that he's gone, right?
Yeah, I mean, I saw that. I was like, wow. I didn't know. I knew he was still with the company. I thought he was like a legend or whatever, but I guess he's been doing stuff backstage. I'm not exactly sure what capacity, but it's like, yeah, I mean, his release was like the headline that was on ESPN. It was like him, and I think like they talked about everyone else, but to see someone that put so much in the company, cut them loose, like, I don't know what he was doing backstage, like I said, but yeah, man, Hall of Famers getting cut out here, like, it's crazy.
Yeah, what do you think? Do you think Kurt Angle? I thought Kurt Angle was gonna be like a WWE lifer, man. With the way they treated his comeback, the way he had his GM run, it felt like he was there for the long, especially after all the troubles he had personally, and like overcoming all those demons, like to return to WWE back where he started. That was like a good story.
Yeah.
It was a good comeback story, I think, and I'm sad that he's gone. But I don't know, man. A part of my gut kind of just says like, I'm not surprised, and I don't know why I feel that way, but I kind of do. Like, I'm not surprised that Kurt got cut, and that he's, you know, he'll find work outside of, you know, WWE. And again, who knows? Eventually, when all this subsides, who knows? That's like my silver lining with all this. That's my hope and optimism, is that, you know, we do see some of these some of this talent come back. But in the interim, I kind of feel like, you know, he's cool, and I really dig Kurt Angle, but I don't know. He kind of just seemed like he would be like on the chopping block, and I don't know, I'm kind of okay with it, but at the same time, like, it sucks. I mean, I guess I'll say this disclaimer, right? Like, I want to talk about the perspective of the character separated from the human being.
Gotcha,
and I know that they're one and the same. I absolutely understand that. So I do not want any disrespect to be construed from like any, you know, comments that we all say. But from a character perspective, from a character perspective, I'm not surprised.
Makes sense.
But I'm sad.
Yeah, it's like, it's just gonna be like a move. Yeah, man, it sucks. Like, that many people, especially during a pandemic, man. I think that's why I hit it hard. Like Darren said, like, they usually do have layoffs after WrestleMania just to like kind of clear the book, start over. But to have this massive amount, and then right when everything else is going down with the coronavirus and everything, and then also like Darren made another good point that how there's so many big companies making layoffs every day. You feel like you open up the newspaper or open up the internet or whatever, there's companies laying off people left and right. So yeah, man. But just hitting home with pro wrestling podcast, hitting home more, I think. Drake Maverick is next on the list. This kind of surprised me too, just because, man, he's so versatile. He could go in the ring, he could do stuff backstage, he could do comedy, he could be a manager. He's so good on social media. There's just so many things you could do with him, and he had a really bright spotlight there for a while for the 24/7 title. Anthony, what do you think about Drake Maverick's WWE run?
You know, I thought at first, I was like, okay, this could be really cool. He's coming in as like a manager. Obviously, he has like he's got a very loud and you know, magnetic personality, whether you like him or not. Even when he was in his TNA stint as Rockstar Spud, like, something about him was like, you either love to hate him or you love to love him, because he's just quirky and like goofy. And, you know, I thought he brought a lot to the table with the 24/7 title, and he just, he's really, you can tell he's super passionate about the business. And I did watch his promo that he cut when he found the news that he got released.
Gosh, that's so sad.
You know, I know, but still being able to do a couple of matches, like, you know, I've got more respect for Maverick, and I'm excited to watch some of those matches, because he's, you know, whether he's with WWE, I think he'll always have a place in the wrestling world, in the wrestling community. But I am sad, because I think there was a lot of potential for him.
Darren, what do you think? What do you think of Drake Maverick's WWE run, and where do you think he goes next?
I was one of the people that was really pulling for Drake. Everything from his debut as like a manager, or I think he started as the GM for 205 Live. Mm-hmm. You know, don't take things for granted. We've always taken 205 Live for granted. I wish I would have watched him more there to see more of his on there work. But his 24/7 title run last summer it got goofy, but it was cool to see him embrace that and come up with different stories. Everything from the wedding and all that good stuff. Being the manager of AOP when they first came to the main roster, like, you could just tell he was super versatile, coming up with stuff. He did all the stuff. He did a lot of his own creative stuff with storyline of the 24/7 title. So to see the news, I watched some of that promo. Is definitely sad, because at the end of the day, these are all human beings with like lives, wives, and families and stuff, and, you know, their source of income has been halted just like that. So it's like, I liked his WWE one. I wish he would have gotten a longer one. Wish we could have seen him a little bit more. Everything from his Rockstar Spud days was really cool. So, like, I hope he does turn up somewhere. But from his promo, it sounded like he may be done. I don't know what that means, though. He might have just meant with WWE. Definitely was sad, though. And hopefully, he comes out of this on the other side somewhere.
This is another guy who he was recently fired from WWE, but he came back and had a pretty good rev. I mean, decent. Kurt Hawkins. I don't know what really to say about Kurt. He's had that streak that going for a very long time where he didn't win any matches, and I think him and Zack Ryder won the titles. I don't know if it was at WrestleMania or around WrestleMania. That was kind of surprising, but I think he really, I don't know if he overperformed or, I don't know if he hit his ceiling. I mean, you can only go so far when you're like Kurt Hawkins and like you have that reputation surrounded by you. So I don't know. I think he came his last 2 or 3 years as WWE. I think you have to label it success. Darren, what do you think about Kurt Hawkins getting in the boot today?
Kurt Hawkins is, I'm not surprised. Kind of like what Anthony said about Kurt Angle. I just, I didn't know they were doing all these cuts. There was nothing about that yesterday that I saw. And when I woke up and read it, I was like, Kurt Hawkins. But seems like this run was a little better. I don't remember his first run. I don't think I was watching wrestling at the time. They did win the Raw tag titles, him and Zack Ryder together. But for him, I wonder like what could have been. Because I feel like a lot of this talent, we never get to see them really perform to their full capacity. But I feel like they're so much more talented than we ever see because WWE just doesn't really let them let loose like that. Like they don't even give them a chance to let loose like that. Like I feel like maybe Kurt Hawkins is one of those people. I don't know. Never really seen much of his on-air character. But I just have this feeling like he's like, he could be very entertaining if given the spot. So.
Anthony, what do you think about Kurt Hawkins' WWE run over the last couple of years?
Again, character-wise, he was low-hanging fruit, low man on the totem pole. But and that sucks because to Theron's point too, I think he had a lot of potential. But then again, obviously they didn't believe in him. They used him as enhancement talent. He jobbed to everybody. There wasn't a big celebration when he finally won the tag titles to go from. To go from a story of literally losing however many hundreds of matches to the one match he does win, he gets a title and there's no sort of like story and or like praise for that, just really shows that they just, and again, character-wise, did not give two hoots about him. So I am sad, and obviously that goes along with his good buddy, Zack Ryder, who was also on the list, but yeah, it just makes me sad because again, I think he had potential. I think they could have made a good Cinderella story out of Kurt Hawkins, just like they did with Ryder.
Now, this one surprised me. It was one of the first 5 announced. Is Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows. Like, this came in with so much hype, and I just feel like WWE never knew what to do with them. I mean, they had little runs here and there, and they had some title wins, and they were in and out with AJ Styles. I don't remember them doing too much with Finn Balor, but I feel like they should have done more with Finn Balor. But I think they still have a lot of cachet with them if they want to go to Japan, AEW, whenever everything opens back up again. I think they'll have no problems. But they definitely got paid a lot. I remember hearing their contract numbers, like when they re-signed and then they first signed, and Carl Anderson, Luke Gallows. Anthony, what do you think about them coming into WWE, and then what do you think about them going out of WWE?
I had such high hopes to like see the club form, and I was so jazzed. Like, okay, so they just leave New Japan, and this was the time when like New Japan like wasn't spoke of at all, right? Like at all in WWE, and these guys come by, and then Michael Cole to reference that these guys held the New Japan NWGP tag titles, and these guys are just decorated across the seas, and like to me that kind of broke down this wall, and I was super stoked and marking out because it felt like finally they're like bringing in the rest of the wrestling community and having this conversation, and even bringing it up like on this, like on the major league sports of sports entertainment. Like, this is so rad, so stoked for these guys. Then they just had a terrible run. They weren't given any sort of like, they just, it's like WWE purposely, did not want to acknowledge the Bullet Club and just how like big of a phenomenon globally they were. Like, it just felt like WWE really hid that candle flame and tried to snuff it out. And sure enough, you know, when they brought in AJ and did the OC, and then they had, you know, Finn Balor and all this stuff, like, you know, it just like, I really had high hopes, but it never turned into fruition. And then after a few years, it was like, yeah, this is just not gonna happen, right? This is like, you know, I'm hoping, you know, hoping to see this come, waiting by the windowsill patiently, you know, rainy day after rainy day, and it just, you know, they never showed up, right? And so I'm sad. Let my balloon go, floats off into the sky, and that's it, right? But most of all, like, I think the send off for them was appropriate for Undertaker to bury. Well, I mean, he literally buried AJ Styles, but that's not where I'm going with this. Where I'm going is that, not specifically with AJ, but what I'm getting at is that Undertaker rightfully destroyed Gallows and Anderson, and I think if anyone was going to write them off, it had to be the Undertaker. So I think their send off was appropriate if they got cut.
Theron, what do you think about the club, man? Gallows and Anderson. What's next for them, and what do you like about their WWE run?
I like them as what they were in New Japan. I didn't really watch. I've never really watched New Japan. So I've seen like maybe one classic match, which I think was probably Styles Shinsuke. You know, I know all about the Bullet Club because, you know, the internet, the Young Bucks, that whole phenomenon. I've seen all the different variations of the Bullet Club in New Japan. So when you start hearing about Gallows and Anderson and how they are multiple time IWGP tag champs, coming in hot. I think their first premiere, they came through the crowd, they beat up somebody. Let's say it was Seth Rollins as babyface Seth Rollins. I'll just say it was someone. So I'm thinking, okay, that's impressive. They got some attitude. They're big, strong. They're out here. And then I think they were skyrocketed to the top of the tag scene pretty quickly. They won the tag titles pretty fast. You know, and then they just kind of fizzled out from there. It was almost like Anthony said, like, we didn't want to acknowledge the fact of this phenomenon that was the Bullet Club for a number of years. You had Finn Balor there, you had AJ Styles there. You could have made a faction that would have been really elite. And you
pun
just
intended.
yes, all pun intended. You just overlooked it, and every time you tried it, it just didn't work. You know, and I'm sad to see those two go because I feel like they could have helped the tag scene. Tag scene is, to me, probably the worst scene in WWE. Just not a lot of tag teams. It's just the same 3 tag teams on SmackDown feuding over the tag titles. You know, Raw has the Street Profits at the top and some newer tag teams, but I'm sad to see the LC go, and I'm sad that WWE didn't use them the way I thought they would use them. Like, they could have used them so much better, and they tried, you know, but it just didn't pan out. So I guess, you know, they kind of had Undertaker send them off at WrestleMania. I don't think they knew that they were getting fired. I don't think Undertaker knew, but maybe somewhere deep in WWE, they knew, like, I'm just going to let you go. But I'm sure they'll find work either back in Japan or, you know, they could turn up in AEW. And I bet you wherever they show up, they'll be way cooler than they were here.
Yeah, I agree, man. Another guy, man, who's just super talented on paper and had a really good run outside WWE, and then just kind of got lost in the shuffle, was Eric Young. I thought he was super talented in TNA. Just even like anyway, like as a mouthpiece or as a manager, or I really like Sanity in NXT, man, and that's one of that 4-man faction that really. I feel like that had so much potential on the main roster, and man, that got blown up fast. Like, I think they were really cool in NXT, and they just completely missed you. And Eric Young was, of course, the head of that. So, yeah, Theron, what do you think about Eric Young? And maybe not surprising that he was released, but I guess what happened with his WWE run?
People just get lost in the shuffle on these rosters, like, and it's pretty terrible because I remember Sanity run on NXT. These dope EY's here, and I know him from TNA. He had a nice little run towards the end. He was the heavyweight champion there. He was kind of like, I think he was kind of like TNA's maybe equivalent, not equivalent on the same level of popularity, but that's what they were trying to make their Daniel Bryan, like the underdog story. He's a little guy.
Yeah.
Great on the microphone. He gets to NXT, they form a faction, but then you slowly see the faction just start to eradicate. Like, so they do this whole thing on SmackDown, I think it was last year, maybe the year before, where they were doing roster call-ups and they were saying Sanity's coming. And I think they showed up, but they never really did anything with it. And then they put Nikki Cross with Alexa Bliss. That took her out. They took the other dude, Killian Dane. They kind of put him back in NXT. Eric Young was just using the 24/7 title storylines as one of the chasers. And then the other guy, Alexander Wolf, they just sent him to NXT UK. And it was like, you never really got to see another talented person really get used in any capacity. Like, he could have been great as a face. He could have been great as a heel. He could have done great promo work. He could have been a really cool manager. Any of those things. And WWE just shit the bed. Sorry, you could edit that out. Like, they just wasted his time. I think at the end he was being used a little bit more backstage, but it's like, why would you take a character like that? Why wouldn't you put him in something? You got plenty of storylines, you know?
Yeah. Anthony, you were a big TNA guy. You sure you had some good Eric Young memories. What do you think about him leaving WWE?
Truth be told, when I heard he was released, I was like, oh shoot, he was still employed. And that sounds terrible because truth be told, I'll say the same phrase. I was really looking forward to Eric Young being an active member of the roster. Sanity was incredible. That's when like NXT was the developmental phase, right? Like this was, you come to NXT, you prove your proving ground and you have a cool gimmick and you run with it. Insanity was fantastic. And for EY to like be the face of that or the head of it, the leader of the group, I was stoked. I was so happy. And then it just fizzled out. And then he shaved his beard and cut his hair and dyed it. And I was like, who the hell is this guy? And he just all of a sudden turned to like Joe Schmo jobber and was like, what is going on? Why did this guy become like, generic wrestler number one on, a creator wrestler,
They never explained why he transitioned either. They never gave him any backstory.
No, again, he was like just generic wrestler number one. That's who he was. And it was like, why did this happen? Why did we hit the reset button on this guy? And didn't even give him the courtesy of like, freaking blowing the dust out of the cartridge. Like, what the hell is going on?
Man. Another guy, man.
So I was sad.
Yeah, guy it seemed like he got a lot of gimmicks. They tried to every which way with him as a single star is Rowan. Rowan got cut today, which, I mean, kind of surprised me a little bit because it seemed like they invested a lot into him. But then again, it doesn't surprise me because there's nothing really stuck, man. And I feel like he's just a big dude who just doesn't really have a cool moveset, really never had a good finisher. Is A-okay on the mic, but nothing to write home about. And yeah, like it just doesn't surprise me. But then again, it does surprise me a little bit. Anthony, what's your fondest Rowan memory? Was there a fondest Rowan memory?
I guess I was surprised when he started talking. What's really sad is his legacy. The last thing that he was known for was a freaking puppet spider.
Oh gosh, what? Yeah, that sums up his whole career, man. Like
right, like that sucks. I mean, he was a part of a Wyatt family. That was rad. He had a big beard. He was a big dude. He had big slams. He was, I think he had a lot of promising potential. I mean, he had a cool run with Bludgeon Brothers. I think he had, I think there was a lot of fuel left in the tank. I think his push with Daniel Bryan was really cool because, let's take a gamble with him. Let's see where this goes. And then they gave him a puppet spider. And that was like, why not like, I don't know, like hang on, let me just say this. Like, if you're going to do some sort of like creepy something it's freaking 2019, 2020. There are plenty of prop makers out there. If the mechanical stupid puppet spider like just looks hokey, why not do some sort of like, I don't know, like fake limb or something, like a severed limb. You know what I mean? Like, why not something really weird? Like, why does he have a severed femur in his cage. That's weird. Oh my God, that's really creepy. We can really sell this thing and make it look really weird and creepy. Versus, let's give you this plushy, squishmallow spider.
Same at the crane game.
You know what I mean? Like you're supposed to be this scary bearded dude, and here's this piece of crap. Found at the dollar store, spider from, or better yet, here is clearance in the back of the freaking Spirit store from 1985. Spider. In fact, we'll pay you to get this out of our inventory, please.
Made of pure asbestos.
Pretty much, dude. Like, why?
So, Theron, do you have any follow-up comments about Rowan? How do you top that? How do you top Anthony's?
Rowan. I guess the questions I would have is one, I don't even have a question. I don't need to take that much time, but I just think of a podcast that was held by one Chris Jericho with John Moxley, 6 months ago, 7 months ago, whenever it happened, last summer, where he talked about the gimmicks that they tried. He talked about the things that the creative would come up with, going all the way as far, ironically, into him coming out in the hazmat suit and saying that the people of the world were disgusting and sick individuals and all evil and whatever, polluted, yada, yada, yada. And just how off the wall from the character that Moxley was trying to portray that was. And I just akin it to Eric Rowan and them coming to him and saying, I know that you haven't spoken at all since you've been on the roster, which was like back in 2012, 2013. But we have this giant puppet spider for you. Never mind what you did with Daniel Bryan for the last 3 months as being the one who assaulted Roman Reigns. Not to mention the fact he got a signature win over Roman Reigns. Never mind the fact that we've given you a voice now. We just have this giant spider. We're going to have you not reveal it for a while until you get into a backstage conversation with No Way Jose. And that's when that's going to be your big reveal, that it's a giant spider that's going to scare everyone and it's going to be really good shit. And that's what they did. And that's what we're going to remember about Eric Rowan. I'm surprised he was fired because I felt like they were just trying to figure out something that would work for him for the last almost a year, really. Because I mean, they came back with the Bludgeon Brothers. I think Rowan got hurt, and then they came back with this new Eric Rowan as D. Bry's security guard or whatever, his muscle. Ran that storyline for a while, and then they kind of just took him on a singles run, and you get a win over Roman Reigns is supposed to be the guy, and then you fizzle out by way of Spider from the back of Spirit Halloween's 85 Halloween clearance section, the year 85. So,
yeah, I think that's
that sums it up. I'm at a loss for words. I feel bad for him. I'm predicting he'll show up as a member of the Dark Order.
Oh gosh, I don't know if AEW should do that, but man, I don't know that maybe I don't know where he needs to go. Maybe go to ROH or something and spread his wings a little bit. But or TNA would work for some reason. Next up, one of the only two women released today so far, Sarah Logan. Man, for formerly the Riot Squad. But this kind of surprised me because of the fact they didn't cut any other women. So I feel like she's one who got called up to NXT too soon, and she really didn't have a character developed yet. And then she was stuck in a faction. The faction kind of started out slow, but I think it was picking up steam. And then injuries and stuff kind of forced them to break up. So I think that was kind of the bad cards dealt for Sarah Logan here. And then she came back recently, and they just never explained anything behind her. Never gave her a vignette or a backstory. Just kind of threw her back out there, which is that's the worst thing you could do creatively. Not explain to your audience what is going on. So she was behind the eight ball. But with all that being said, she's young. She's athletic. I was surprised they released her. Theron, what do you think about Sarah Logan?
This one kind of hit me right in the feels box, Cotton. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna, because it's you're going through all these names. You got the big names, you got the Kurt Angles, you got the OC, you got other names we'll get to. But it's like I was just saying, they went and it seemed like they were kind of vested in there. The Riot Squad did start out hot. Obviously, injuries derailed the hotness. They broke up the Riot Squad. Seemed like when they all were healthy again. So once Riot was back, Liv Morgan's back, Sarah Logan's been back. I think she was kind of lumbering around on Main Event. I think they still do that show, Main Event. I don't know where it airs, but they do it. And then they kind of just put her back on the card. She had a couple matches against Charlotte Flair with no explanation as to why. But she had a couple matches against Charlotte Flair. She lost those matches. Liv Morgan comes back. Ruby Riot's back. They're all in the Elimination Chamber. So I'm like, this could be a cool story. This could be just a cool story with no women's title involved. They could just have a triple threat match between the three of them to figure out who's the coolest one in the Riot Squad. Just be a little side angle. You could do it on Raw. It doesn't have to be on the pay-per-view or anything. And then, we're still seeing her more and more. She jobs to Shayna Baszler, and that's the last thing we remember is that Shayna Baszler snapped her elbow. And I'm like, that's how you send someone off? Like, that's almost as disrespectful as emailing someone on their wedding day to tell them that they're fired. So, you know what I mean? Like, I really felt that one. I mean, she didn't seem to be too hurt by it. She just kind of put, I love you guys and thank you on her Instagram. But I always looked at Sarah Logan as someone that could be something because she kind of had that Viking, Game of Thrones, garb to her. Just real, I don't know. She's like a tough SOB type of woman. She could probably hunt a deer and kill it with you and then skin it alive as well. And I think they could have done more with her, but, I'm surprised to see them let her go like that. Because if anything, she could have been enhancement talent for at least another 6 months until they figured something out.
Yeah. Anthony, what do you think about Sarah Logan? She get a Raw deal here?
I got to do this quick because I just spilled some water on my desk. Shoot. Fudge.
Okay, let me move on to the next. I think you don't have to say it.
Hang on, I'll be right back. I'm really. It's sad. It sucks, but just like Tommy said, they didn't really have anything for her, so it's a bummer.
He just jumped Sarah Logan just like that.
Yeah, he jumped her right out. So right to a cup of water, man. Oh man. The producer, the one drinking liquids right by his electronics. I thought it'd be me or you, Theron, to be if everyone was placing bets in the audience. Man, the next one is, we've been talking about this one for several months. It seems like maybe the whole last year we've been talking about this guy. EC3 finally released today. I think it all started with NXT and him not being on NXT long enough for him to. He should have held some belts down there, man. Even in a tag capacity, he was called up to the main roster way too soon, and the main roster was already crowded. And then they just didn't have a concrete plan to introduce him or a concrete plan a storyline to put him into. He's just another guy that's behind the eight ball, and he's just super talented. I mean, his run in TNA was just for a good 6 or 7 months, he was the only reason to watch TNA until Matt Hardy came along. He did that, bridged that gap a little bit. And he was just so talented. And I don't know how young he is, but it feels like he's still got a lot of years left in him. So whoever picks him up, man, everyone as soon as he's heard him released, everyone's fantasy booking MJF versus EC3 in AEW as a feud or as a faction or a tag team or something. But EC3, man. So this is one of those ones sucks that he got let go, but the WWE wasn't using him for anything. They're just sitting him on the shelf for God knows how long. So, Theron, what do you think about EC3's potential and what happened with his WWE run here?
This is probably my biggest letdown of the releases because I remember being super excited. I remember watching his TNA run and just being like, this dude was in NXT before or in WWE before, and they wasted this talent, and he's now killing it in TNA, and he was the only reason to watch him with Rockstar Spud, which is Drake Maverick. That was classic. Those promos,
real life friends too.
Real life friends, and watching that. So when they showed him in the crowd at one of those NXT takeovers, I was like, here we go. This is big. They're not gonna mess it up this time, right? I just envisioned him showing up in suits, kind of having this evolution feel to him, but just him by himself, cutting sick promos. Maybe he doesn't never get to the top of the mountain, but at least in the beginning, he could have been where like Andrade is right now, mid-card title holder, cutting sick promos, could have been the dopest villain, could have really been making people mad, and instead he was in the inaugural NXT North American title match as part of that ladder match. That was probably the biggest match he ever had in WWE.
It's highlight, yeah.
He had another match on NXT, and then I feel like from there they called him up to the main roster, but they never, I don't even think he ever got entrance music. I don't think he ever cut a promo on the main roster. I think the only thing he did was be involved in that 24/7 title picture for a little bit, and then they pulled him out of that. He's just been sitting at home, and he wasn't doing anything, so like that one, it sucks, but I would rather him have a chance to go somewhere else and just prove to WWE why they keep stubbing their foot on the door, because it's like you keep wasting this great talent to put over these guys that are like old, or you keep going back to people from like the mid to early 2000s, and that's your cash cow. And I'm not saying it doesn't work, but it's like, come on, man, like when are you going to start making new legends? Because those wrestlers that you're using over and over again, they're not going to be able to wrestle forever. 10 years is going to fly by, and they're going to be old. You know what I mean?
Anthony, are you back yet? Or you covered your flood, or are you still cleaning that up?
Yeah, no. I cleaned it up and then I grabbed a beer.
Nice multitasking.
Exactly.
Drank a beer yet.
So what did I miss?
It's EC3, man.
EC3.
How long we've been talking about him on the podcast, and now he's finally released from WWE. So like, what the hell happened, man? Like, what happened with his 2.5 year run in WWE, and what do you think's next for him?
Oh, so disappointing. Because again, I had such high hopes. He was like, to me, he was kind of like the golden child. He was the like, oh my god, you guys picked up EC3. Like, get ready for like the coolest promos and the coolest future run. I mean, I can see this guy being a champion. I can see him like just running the gamut. And then they didn't do anything with him.
Oh, gosh.
Freaking left him by the wayside, dude. And it was like, what the fudge? That's highly disappointed in how they used him. And I mean, I'd come to find out later on he gets injured, and rightfully so. I understand why you shelve him, but even before his injury, even in NXT, they did nothing with him.
He wasn't in NXT that long.
No, it was
big mistake,
so disappointing. Like, I don't know. I'm really disappointed on how they handled him, because they could have done so much. He's so good in every way, shape, and form. The physique, the mic skills, getting heat, being a babyface. Like,
he do it all.
This guy was ready-made. He was ready-made, and they never used him. And it's so like, it just blows my mind. Like, somebody must have. Okay, so obviously this is what WWE has done, right? They'll find really good talent, and then they'll hoard them.
Mm-hmm.
And he was hoarded. He was a gem. He was a shiny diamond that was just left in the back of the warehouse, back of the shop, for no one to see. And WWE could claim that they had him, because they did, and they just didn't want to show him off to anybody. Highly disappointing.
I wish we could have a panel with WWE where we could ask them real questions like, what the F were you guys thinking with this? Because I just want to see what they would say. I want to talk to Vince McMahon specifically, as well as whoever is the head of creative, so I can ask these questions, and I would love to hear what their response would be. I really would, because I saw, I didn't read this article because I didn't care. I guess Seth Rollins, I think a lot of people have been bashing WWE all day, but we've been bashing them forever, so because that's what we're good
Deservedly
at.
so, man.
They do deserve it, dude, because this just really grinds my gears. Like, the more I'm thinking about this, I'm like, how dare you? How dare you feature Endeavor so much talent like this? I know you had to, but it's like, why pick the people that you picked? And like, I guess Seth Rollins was coming to the defense of WWE because he's so prideful of the company, because he's probably one of the people making the most money. Mm-hmm. And I would just like to say to Seth Rollins, like, dude, they let EC3 go, and I feel like EC3 is more over than you are right now. And he never was even on TV. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it just goes to show they just like to kick their foot in the door. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Something. This one surprised me, because he's had a different incarnation. He's been a wrestler, he's been a manager, and he's been an announcer. And I think he's just one of those talented dudes like you could do a lot with. Aiden English. which I was on and off again with him. But man, him and Rusev Day, when he was part of Rusev Day, I think that was the perfect, unlikely pairing that made no sense, that WWE just threw together and just picked two names out of a hat, and then they ran with it and they did something with it. And then him as an announcer, I think he has so much potential. As a character in general, I think he's just a talented dude. So I'm really surprised that he's let go. Anthony, what do you think about Aiden English?
Yeah, I'm reminded of his first run when he was with whatchamacallit, what was it?
The Vaudevillains.
Gotch,
I forgot about
Simon
that.
Gotch.
I completely forgot about that. Oh my gosh, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah, he was with Simon Gotch, and then that was cool, and I was like, okay, this guy's got some potential. Like, this could be kind of fun. And then when he got paired up with Rusev Day, that's really when they let him run with it. And I was like, this could be kind of cool. They're giving him kind of this like artist opera thing. Like, let's run with this. And sure enough, he had a cool run, and then nothing really happened thereafter.
They didn't even do like a breakup feud. Like what? Like
no, he just disappeared.
Yeah. Theron, what do you think about Aiden English, man? What's next for him?
More wasted talent. He was someone that came up through NXT as a member of the Vaudevillains. I think that's where, if you pay attention to them, you can see that those guys were both pretty talented. I don't know so much about Gotch, but kind of got to see Aiden English. I think he was singing. He's been singing since then. Correct me if I'm wrong. And then they put him with Rusev. I think they just did it. I bet you they did it for their own comic relief, not thinking it would get over, but it got so over that they had to turn Rusev face in the process, and then they just stopped it because I think they didn't want it to continue to succeed the way it was. And I think that WWE will do that if they're like, we got to kill this because this is getting too big. People are chanting Rusev Day in the middle of the main event. They're not even in the main event. So they put him on commentary. I think he was doing like 205 Live, right?
Yeah.
And he was probably killing it over there. I hope for the sake of our entertainment, he comes back in some capacity somewhere. I think he was a very misused talent, to say the least. So sad to see him go, but it's like they weren't really using him besides announcing on a show that no one pays attention to. So.
Oh man, this is another guy who had a up and down run of WWE, but it seems like this is another guy who just oozes talent, and he's young. I think he's only 25 or 24. Lio Rush, man. I think this is a guy who's like, man, he can go in the ring, super talented on the mic, young, athletic. Man, I think this guy just has it all. I think he's another guy. Maybe he'll come back to WWE eventually, but the WWE be very careful letting go like this type of talent. I know he's had some backstage troubles, and he's very outspoken. Kind of learned some lessons the hard way. Just being a young guy, being one of the younger guys on the main roster for a while. But this one kind of surprised me despite all that. Theron, what do you think about Lio Rush?
Wasted. Wasted. This guy is a moth. Okay, it's an acronym for something. I don't know what it means.
Man of the hour.
That's what it is. The man of the hour. Oh, thank you. I didn't know.
I never knew that.
I never knew. I was like, what is with this moth thing? Why does he keep saying that? What is with the moth? Oh, man of the hour. It makes sense. He was a guy who, I guess, he had said somewhere that he didn't do too much promo before they put him with Lashley. But I feel like we really got to see him work when they put him with Lashley. Like, he was cutting pretty cool promos. He's getting Lashley over. Lashley can't get himself over. He doesn't have the mic capacity skills to do it. And then, that kind of ended. He wasn't doing anything for a while. Then they bring him back as the inaugural NXT Cruiserweight Champion. Then he loses that title really fast. And then he's just sitting at home making music videos, because I follow him on IG. That's how I know all this. And the last thing I saw from him was they just announced this NXT Cruiserweight Championship tournament, which I don't know why, because they had a champion. Not sure what happened to that guy. I don't think he lost the title. Have no idea what happened to that guy. He was from NXT UK, and Rush was like, "It's odd that I'm not in this tournament." He did like a whole little thing on this story about it, and then boom, 2 days later he's fired. And I'm just like, come on, man! Like, this is a guy that had one of some really awesome matches that weren't in WWE. If you look at his highlight tape, you can just see he's explosive. He goes in the ring. He does whatever they ask, despite the backstage troubles. I guess that's just not paying her dues as a rookie or whatever. I thought he was someone that they could have used a lot more. They could have used him way more to put over their cruiserweight division. They could have even had him doing mid-card stuff or whatever. So maybe he'll come back later on after everything's cleared up. But yeah, man, just another waste of talent. Like you guys just really know how to waste talent. It feels like they just hoard talent just to say they had the talent.
Anthony, what do you think about Leo Rush's up and down run in WWE?
You know, to be perfectly honest, I never really followed him all that much. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it's a bummer because I feel like, again, he was up and down, but he had a lot of potential. Mm-hmm. So I just think, again, that he was cut too soon.
Yeah. This and the other guys, man, people were making jokes about them as soon as the cut started flowing in that they're going to survive it. But as Primo and Epico, these guys, like, I feel like when we started rewatching, we all got back into WWE. They were like one of the main tag teams in the tag team division. Now look at this, like 8 or 9 years later, they were still on the roster. But this is another one's like, okay, they probably better left going somewhere they could be active and actually be doing stuff. They were the Matadors for brief time, and that's all I can really recall from them. Anthony, Primo, and Epico, they seemed like they were a running joke for a while.
I know. Honestly, I thought they were gone. Yeah. I thought they were gone a long time ago. But yeah, it just makes me sad that they're truly gone. Like, it's just, we'll never see them again. And I don't know. At the same time, it's like, oh shit, you guys were still hired.
We're just looking at that monthly check. Theron, what do you think about Primo and Epico?
I forgot that they were on the roster because they haven't been on either brand, any brand, for the last like 2-3 years. The last I heard, I think one of them got in trouble for the drug policy or drinking or I don't know, something stupid. Oh, wow. I don't know though. I don't know because I don't remember. Not surprised. These are the cuts where it's like, okay, well, I mean, fine. They haven't been on TV in forever, so, it's fine. I feel bad for them. I hope that they saved enough money, and I hope that, whatever they do next, they're successful at it. I never really got behind them as characters. We kind of missed them initially in WWE. I want to say they were with Carlito.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
We missed the entire Carlito run. But it's like, you bring back people like MVP, put them in a Money in the Bank qualifying match, and then you cut all these people that we've listed.
Doesn't make any sense. This is another people who had like a lot of potential. They had a good run in Japan and in ROH. Marie and Mike Kanellis, aka Mike Bennett. Especially Marie, dude. She's like super talented on the mic. She had a really good singles run before she was the first time she was WWE, and then Mike Bennett never really got off the ground. It felt like ever with anything.
No, he didn't.
Yeah. So Anthony, what do you think about these guys? Canellis leaving WWE.
Same thing. He never took off. Obviously, he had a really good stint in TNA. He was formidable. He was powerful. Mm-hmm. And then when they moved him over, he just fell apart when they made him. And this is no knock, right? Like when they made him Mike Kanellis versus Mike Bennett, they just really put him in this like oddball position where he just seemed like a wimp. Yeah. And not to say because he took his wife's last name, but they like legitimately made him look like a wimp. Yeah. So to go from like this, like, yeah, dude, he's leaving TNA and he's going to come over to freaking WWE and he's in NXT. This guy's a badass. Like, this guy can really do it. And even from his ROH days. And then all of a sudden it's like he's booked like a wimp.
Yeah.
Like, whoa. Like, I don't care if he has his wife's last name and like wears roses on his pants. Like, more power to you, bud. But why are they making you purposefully look weak?
Yeah.
Like, just in how he was wrestling and just whatever storyline they put him in, doesn't make any freaking sense. And so I think they just, again, they hoarded really good talent and they just totally purposefully, tried to screw him, and that's what happened. Excuse me, that's what wound up happening.
Darren, what do you think about Marie and Mike Kanellis leaving WWE?
We never really got to see Mike Kanellis or Mike Bennett. Never really got to see what we saw as potential in ROH and TNA. I think I first got wind of the two of these people in ROH. Maria Kanellis was like the leader of this. She was like the spokesperson for this faction. I forgot what they called themselves back there. And I was like, that seems pretty cool. I don't know who this girl is with the red hair, but I like her. I like her giddy up. And then they went to TNA. They had a run there, and that was when I kind of started believing. I was like, okay, this could be cool. And then they got brought over, and I don't even know if Mike and Maria were on NXT. I feel like they went straight to like SmackDown. And they had the story as like star-crossed lovers who were in love. And then the best storyline we got was them involved in the 24/7 title picture. Paul Heyman probably liked both of them, so he's trying to get them on TV. She's pregnant. We don't know who the dad is. And they did, but they really made Mike look like he was soft, and I know he's not soft. But the thing is, these are people who were he was looking to get out of his contract like last summer.
Yeah.
And I remember that. So I feel like he and his wife are people that will end up somewhere else. They'll be okay. And then we'll see better work from them. But it's like, it just really goes back to us harping on WWE. I feel like they just kind of sit at the top of this totem pole and they just look at people and don't take them seriously, or they just look at them as jokes, or like you take someone who's got kind of a name for themselves and they're like, well, let's see how we can embarrass this person.
This is the perfect segue to my next guy.
A
longtime fan favorite on the Bros for Elbow show, Zack freaking Ryder, the internet champion of the world. Talk about misuse, just untapped potential. A guy they sat on the shelf for long periods of time, man. But again, one of the guys when we started getting back into wrestling, like Zack Ryder was cool, man. He has his own YouTube show. He was way ahead of his time as far as that going. He totally got himself over. In the internet age when WWE wasn't really didn't know how to pursue it as well as they do now. So I don't know if he was penalized for getting over by himself or with not the WWE power, but I sent you guys a video of Survivor Series 2011 where The Rock was making a speech and everyone was chanting for Zack Ryder, man. That was like his peak. Like then he became U.S. champion, had a good didn't have a good run there. A couple years ago, he won the IC title and then loses the next night on Raw. So they just start and stop this guy's push so many times that and then another guy was booked to look like a wimp a lot of times. Got pushed off the stage by Kane when he was like in the wheelchair. I think that's like symbolic of his push with WWE. Like that was his peak, and there's never found a way to recover with that. And you're talking about Mike Bennett. It was another guy, Zack Ryder, I think they put in a hole, and they kept putting him in a hole deeper and deeper, and like, hey, work your way out of that. And there's just only so many ways he could do that before the fans just stop caring and stop taking him seriously. So,
yeah,
I don't know what's next for him, but I think he just definitely one of the guys who got a raw deal. Theron, what do you think?
Super raw deal. This is one of those stories where you're just waiting for the feel good moment. And if you look at the way that people are booked or written or buried without it being like plain as day, I feel like that's what they did with Ryder. I feel like maybe they brought him in thinking this guy will just be mid-card talent, he'll be an enhancement talent, we'll use him for whatever we want. This is Vince McMahon talking. And then he goes and gets over on YouTube before the internet was like, this is like when the internet was really blowing up as far as like internet, social media, like promotions, and he gets himself over, and they didn't really pay attention to it. So I feel like his initial burial was that entire John Cena, him and Kane, and I think Eve Torres story. I feel like they really did that to bury Zack Ryder and hope that the fans would forget about Zack Ryder. But lo and behold, he's still been on our minds. Woo woo woo, you know it.
Woo woo woo.
And then now, he has this moment at WrestleMania, and it's like it was almost like they did that just to knock him down even further. Like you win the Intercontinental title, only to lose it the next night, so that Maurice could premiere or re-debut on Raw. And it's like ever since then, he hasn't done anything. I think he may have had a 24/7 title reign in there. He might have won it for like 5 seconds. I don't remember. And it's just
He was a tag champ, right?
he was a tag champ, right? But it's like they did it so that you would forget about the character. So that when they release him, you'd be like, oh, well, whatever. They weren't using him anyway. But they could have done so much more with him. And I feel like they just overlooked him. He had the look. If he got himself over on the internet, he's obviously got mic skills. And, you know, I again, this is a guy that I hope ends up in AEW because I want to see him get used, or even TNA, so I can see, you know, what his potential really is without the powers that be that are WWE.
Anthony, you're a longtime advocate for Zack Ryder. He's almost like a not a meme for the Bros of Robo show, but he always brought up more than probably any other podcast, I would say, over the last couple of years. Zack Ryder always had a place and you're one of the big guys. What do you think about Zack Ryder's WWE career? What went right? What went wrong here?
Well, here I'll tell you a quick little story. So moved to Portland, finally get cable TV because we can afford it. And my first thing was, okay, I got to start watching Raw. And this was after a long stint of not watching pro wrestling for a long time. Mm-hmm. And one of the first people that I see come out is Zack Ryder. And my first thought was, oh my God, what have I been missing? Like, who is this guy? And at that time he was, he was just like internet champ. He was coming out. And I didn't know he was a jobber, you know, because then I see like people like Sheamus, and this is the time when Ziggler was with Jack Hager. Now I can't even remember his other gimmick.
Jack Swagger.
Jack Swagger. And I just thought about Jack Hager. So either way, so I'm watching it. So Zack Ryder was really one of the first guys that got me back into WWE when I could, you know, begin to watch pro wrestling again. And to see his progression and to see, like, of course, like how he jobbed out and stuff, but how he would get pops and how people would just like, they just loved him, right? He had so much spunk and just this personality that was bigger than life. And, you know, that guy was the epitome of, in my mind. Now, you know, other people might think differently, but he is the epitome of grab the brass ring. Like, he leveraged social media. He had this gimmick that he was passionate about, and, you know, he was a good looking guy. He had a great finisher, and I thought he was great in ring talent. And then for him to, you know, get his moment in WrestleMania to win the ladder match when nobody thought he would win, that to me overshadows the fact that he lost the next night. I don't even remember that, to be perfectly honest. What I remember is him winning the title. Like, I will always have that memory above the other. So really, it's really sad. It really makes me sad because he got me back into, like, was one of the dudes that got me back into, you know, watching pro wrestling again and really following it. And I'm really sad that he's gone. You know, I thought it'd be really fun for him to, again, kind of have some sort of comeback, but they just always punked him. So again, I hope that whatever he lands up doing next, or whatever winds up doing next, that he continues to get ripped. He continues to take care of himself. I'm not saying he wasn't in the past, but that he kind of does this like Drew McIntyre turn. You know, I think that's kind of my hope for everybody is to do the McIntyre makeover, right? And to like come back 10 times stronger and something different and something new. But I truly am sad because I've always been a fan of Zack Ryder. Woo, woo, woo. Never forget.
They've got only two more left. One more probably a lot to say about, one not so much. First of all, No Way Jose, man. Just the gimmick, man. I don't think he ever had a chance. But he's a young dude, so I'm surprised that they cut him so soon. Darren, what do you think about No Way Jose?
Never really got behind the gimmick. I feel like that was I feel like they were really what they were trying to do. I don't know what they were trying to do. I feel like they were like, well, we really missed the beat with
Adam Rose.
Yes, with Leo Kruger, who's jacked right now. By the way, I don't know if you've seen pictures of him recently. He's entirely too big for his own body. It's disgusting how big he's gotten. But I feel like they were like, all right, well, we missed the party bus, so let's do this conga line thing. Maybe it'll work, but it'll have a Latin feel to it. Boom. And it didn't really ever work. So he became part of the enhancement talent. And, now he's fired. Whatever. Never really heard him speak on the microphone. I feel terrible if you get future endeavored. I'm sorry, because your income has been cut to zero. But I never really got to see the character. All I knew with him to do was salsa and do conga line. So
you only get so far with that. Anthony, what do you think of No Way Jose?
Again, he was one of those dudes I was like, oh, he's still employed?
Yeah.
Okay. They brought him out. Well, I remember when he debuted on NXT. And I first thought was like, okay, this guy's just another Adam Rose. Yeah. But he was good. He was undefeated for a while. Obviously, people really liked him.
Yeah, I do remember that.
And he was tall. He was big. He was a big guy. Like, I didn't realize how big he was until, I compared him to other people. And, yeah, man. So, again, it's just, I'm not surprised. He's one of those people that, like, I'm not surprised they let him go because they just weren't doing anything with him.
Yeah. Last one on the list. I think this is the biggest probably misstep of everyone, almost everyone on the list is Rusev being released today, man. Just like he could do everything, man. He's got a great personality for a face or a heel. He could do it both. He can go in the ring. He's got the size, and he had a gimmick, man. He had Rusev Day. He had the merch. He had the catchphrase. They had the crowd at WrestleMania. I think it was 34, 33. Just going crazy for Rusev Day, just chanting everything. Like, and people were just like talking the streets, like even at indie shows, there'd be Rusev Day chants like breaking out throughout the weekend, and they just had it all in his hand, man, and just like they just kept starting and stopping his pushes. Like either they'd make him a heel or they'd make him a face, and then they wouldn't stick with either one long enough. So it just confused the hell out of the fans. And then like the move was just when that Rusev Day stuff took off organically. Just ride with it, man. It's an organic thing that your audience is doing. Just run with it. And then WWE just couldn't like figure out how to do that. Maybe because they didn't create it themselves. That it was Aiden English and Rusev getting it over on their own on social media and just with the live crowd. So WWE can have to, once they got their hands on it, they couldn't figure out how to push it. But man, I just think that's one of the huge missteps over the last couple of years. WWE not capitalizing on Rusev Day, not giving him a big long singles run as a baby face using that catchphrase. But Anthony, what do you think about Rusev over the last couple of years, and what's next for him?
I can't remember what episode it was, but we did an episode where we asked the question, who of these three NXT superstars do we think is gonna go the distance? One of them being Adam Rose, one of them being Rusev, and then the other one being, I don't know, I can't remember. But obviously they didn't make it. Or maybe they did. I'm just totally forgetting about it and totally.
I do remember that question of the day. Yeah.
And I had picked Adam Rose, and then a couple months later, he nothing happens and he fizzles out. But Rusev comes out, long hair, freaking just destroying everybody. Comes out in a freaking tank at WrestleMania. Awesome. Bulgarian brute, kicking ass, taking names, eating your lunch, squeezing your milk box, and throwing it across the room, and holding you upside down and shaking your change out. Like, this guy was a monster, and he ran the distance. He did the distance. And after Rusev Day, when he had his face turn, where I guess WWE was against him being a face, but naturally everybody loved him. It was just I'm really happy to see what he's done, but I'm really sad that he's gone, but I'm also sad again that the last thing he'll be remembered for, or his last gimmick storyline, was the stupid Bobby Lashley.
I forgot about that
divorce garbage, this dumpster fire of a story. That's sad that was his last big storyline with a crowd of people.
Ugh, man, I completely forgot about that. Theron, what do you think about Rusev? What WWE wrong? What's next for the Bulgarian brute?
This one really pisses me off.
Tell us how you really feel.
I'm pissed off. I've been pissed off in relation to, all jokes aside, just looking at this cut day, D-Day as they call it, this annual D-Day. Every year you hear these names that get released, but usually it's people that have been looking to get released, or they weren't doing anything, or it's someone you've never really heard of anyway. When you hear the name Rusev, I just think back to him originally when he first got to the main roster. just destroying people. Lana by his side, Lana being Russian at the time, but we're going to overlook that. Speaking with a strong Russian accent, her telling him to crush, him crushing, doing it over and over again. You look at WrestleMania, I think it might have been 30, it might have been 31. I don't really remember. You think of this massive Bulgarian brute coming out on a freaking armored truck or an army tank. That was one of the best entrances of the last decade, hands down. One of the best WrestleMania entrances. I don't know if he won or lost the match. I don't remember. I don't care. So you see that. And then you see this momentum of this organic thing. It's like lightning in a bottle, right? With this Rusev. I don't even remember how that started. I don't remember if Aiden English just started saying it's Rusev Day, singing it, and then all of a sudden the fans just loved it. They just drew to it. Like Anthony said, it seems like because it wasn't created by WWE and formatted in their laboratory, they didn't like it. So they didn't run with it. It's like the fans are giving you what you need to be successful and get your ratings up that you're bitching about, but you're just not going to do anything with it. And then you fast forward to this last winter, January to be exact. And their best idea, which I guess Rusev supposedly came up with this on his own, which gives you his amount of the links he was willing to go to get back on TV. He had a hand in the creation of this process. Is we're gonna break you and Lana up. Never mind the fact that we introduced her as a Russian spy or whatever. And now she was on Total Divas, so we broke the fourth wall there. We're just going to break you up. She's going to go and do a cuckold storyline with Bobby Lashley. They're going to get married to the point where all her social media just talks about her or Bobby Lashley. There's no more mention of Rusev ever. And he lost that whole feud. I don't think he ever beat Lashley in that feud at any point in time because they wanted to put over Bobby Lashley instead of the guy who was the lightning in the bottle, the guy that had all the stuff going for him. People were still chanting Rusev Day at that time, and you just fumbled it. You fumbled it again. And that's what we're going to remember. You know, the last thing I heard from Rusev was he was either injured or he had a contract dispute. And that was one that was surprising because that was a late one. It was like the list ended with, I think, No Hey Jose. And then like 5 minutes later, they added Rusev. And I was like, are you kidding me? And then, you know, Lana's obviously, she's still with the company. She wasn't on that future endeavored list. So I want to see what they do. I want to see what happens with Rusev now. I don't know. I can't say whether or not he'll be successful outside of WWE. I don't know what type of copyright they have on his name or whatever. So definitely sucks to see that happen to a guy with so much talent. But he doesn't seem to be bothered. I think his Twitter said something like, "Love you, Rusev out." So.
And that is it, man. That covers the whole episode. It's an extended edition of the Bros Before Elbows show. We covered everyone, and WWE, the state of WWE in general, I think.
Yeah, I think that was definitely a great episode. Again, it's kind of somber and sad, but I am looking forward to seeing what the future holds for a lot of these superstars. Obviously, when everything subsides and we, emerge into this new world, I'm excited to see what creativity comes from all of this. My final thing is, hey, thanks for listening to the Bros Before Elbows Pro Wrestling Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, and definitely subscribe on YouTube. Check us out on Podbean. We're on iTunes. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter, and any other places on social media. Hey, join the conversation, share the show with a friend, and stay safe.
Darren, no thoughts?
Just, like Anthony said, stay safe. I am interested to see what WWE does now. They've cut all these people. They're getting backlash. They're getting whatever. What content will you put out now? Because with this elimination of so much talent, you should be able to focus on the storylines you currently have. So what are you going to give us to make us forget about all this talent? I demand to know.
It is a tall task. A very tall task indeed. Wash your hands, people.
Yes, I prefer Arizona.